I'm very I think I'm going to run very parallel to this, to your talk, and well, I can start by simply agreeing with where you end. We need a yes end. We need, I think, a combination of the high modernist Corbusian model and the messiness, because if we want to parse what we do to climate change, then we would like to have a smart grid. And if we would like to have a smart grid, we need some generic infrastructure. And so we need this kind of open infrastructure in order then to sort of to work on. So I think that what you'll be hearing in what I'm going to say, that well, we're going to run very parallel. There's a book out. It's called Democracy of Objects. You can Google it. You can also download it. It's by Levi R. Bryant. And I think this is going to be very important because as we have to agree with Adam, saying that if we allow fully autonomous processes, machine-to-machine communication to run sort of parallel of us, well, this is definitely going to be the Star Trek sort of spaceship, right? But we are going to have to negotiate more with autonomous M2M processes. This will happen. And for that, we need a kind of philosophy that is not strictly sort of the human-centered as we have been over the past sort of thousands of years. We need to include animals. We need to include plants. We need to include resources. Resources are friends. And we need to include objects in different ways. And he is sort of giving us a kind of framework for that. It's still quite difficult. I don't think I really understand or really get it, but that's where we need to go. So this Internet of Things is very broad. It's a value chain. If you talk to the big companies, they've been making standards for quite some time. The barcode is from 1974. It was a huge operation to get companies not to compete on this. And we now have a kind of ecology of barcodes that you all know from objects, QR codes that you know from your mobile phones, RFID that you know from your bus passes, active RFID that you know from sensors in the city, and IP46 that will come rapidly, even more here in Asia than in Europe. It's stalling in Europe, but it's coming here quickly, which is a new internet protocol, because when the moment that they installed the IP4, they did not think about mobile phones, and they thought the 4 billion unique IP address would be enough. Then the mobile phones came and sort of everything got out of hand. Now we need more addresses. This will mean that basically anything that will have a little bit of connectivity in as objects, like coffee machines, toothbrushes, will have some kind of addressability with a unique IP address. Which means that we already have a kind of situation in which objects can be uniquely identified. This is here already a little bit. We have to assume that this is it, and all the big companies are assuming it. So this idea that there will be a kind of layer where objects can be logged, tracked, and traceable, that's a given. Then on top of this, a service layer is built, and this is where the telcos and the insurance companies are coming together already as we speak. And you are now buying a bundle to make some phone calls and get some texts. When your objects will start also twittering and sort of talking, and your blinds the batteries in your blinds will start to text somebody that they're running out, because that's what they're going to do already, what they are doing already. You don't want to get a text from your batteries, from the batteries in your blinds. So you're going to outsource that. And you're going to outsource that to a kind of a bundle that you'll buy from your telco that will then give you, with the right data mining, the best scenarios being played back sort of real time. So you'll get real-time threat applications and watch out for the biker on your left. So that's the kind of thing that people are building. Then this is all going to happen within the context that Adam described, the smart city context. And then we have this global layer, and that's the IBM Cisco Smart Planet sort of idea. And that's the Chinese idea of the sensing planet. And I think you've been aware that the Chinese Prime Minister has been mentioning Internet of Things quite a few times, which is politically very important. a lot of investments going around in mainland China on the Internet of Things. It's not a bubble, it's not a hype, it's very, very real. And the idea of the sensing planet is basically, as we saw the picture from Rio, to get a dashboard for the mayor, which that is to kind of get a dashboard for the government, so that we have every analog process somehow digitally represented in a kind of, the kind of dashboard style for then the people in power, the decision makers, as we've seen, to sort of start twirling some knobs and sort of to get some information and to start thinking about, well, we should do this there and do that there. And I think we can, our job as in this current moment is basically maybe only to switch, to take out the end users there and to have the decision makers, and to take out the decision makers and put citizens in there. So that we'll have a dashboard for neighborhoods and a dashboard for streets, and not a dashboard just for the mayor in this city. So everybody's affected: industry, end users, individuals, planning, infrastructure, even really, really tough decision-making processes on the ground. And we can see at the moment two basic ways of thinking about this. One is a bit reactive. It's not a comment on the position, but it's sort of, you have reactive and proactive. And the reactive position, which is basically 99% of the people that we talk to, they see Internet of Things as a layer on top of things. And they think that they can manage it with the current tools that they have. And we think that it's not. And we think that it's more like a proactive situation, and that this Internet of Things will not only change the things, the layer, the connections between the things, but the very nature of the things themselves. And as that is going to happen, it will mean that it's going to be very disruptive. The ability to print books was in 1451. The first library in Holland was 1917. Also England, the first Public Library Act was 1880, and power was able to stall distributing learning tools for over 400, 500 years. If you would have argued in 1700 that you would want to read, they would burn you. I mean, this was very serious, and it's not such long ago. The browser, that's basically the way the people think of the internet. Most people think of the internet is 1993. It's only 19 years old. In this 19 years, it has sort of cracked every institution and every company sort of a little bit. This Internet of Things will crack companies, institutions, and governments completely. And it's our job, I think, to help them organize into more organized and flat structures. And that's the sort of thing I want to discuss. Now we're preparing also a kind of book proposal, and we made these 6 fabrics, like a social fabric, technological fabric, economy, design, philosophy, and governance. Yeah, social, Adam has already sort of talked about it, mentioned it. It's not going to, it's very difficult, because companies and governments are telling citizens constantly that we cannot trust the environment. But in order for Internet of Things to become an Internet of Things, and not 100,000 intranets of things and a lot of private networks that only talk to each other and not through this flow of an Internet of Things with objects really talking to each other, like TCP/IP has done for the Internet, it means that we have to trust the environment, but it's not going to happen because because we're being told that we cannot trust it constantly. So this paradox is the thing that's sort of the most important player in this social field. Well, technologically, we have basically energy as a main problem. So we want a zero entropy system, and we also want an energy harvesting system. So we cannot have startups that set up little boxes like Twine. That is, if you Google for it, you find that it's already got $300,000 on Kickstarter. It's running on AA+ batteries. We cannot scale that to a system of like billions of devices. Scalability, security and privacy, communication, and the integration of smart components. I mean, these are sort of the technical challenges. And the beauty, I think, of these technical challenges at the moment is that you don't have to be MIT, you don't have to be a big university to work on this. This is also not rocket science. RFID is not rocket science. The sensor and the board problems are doable, and you can actually do them with very little resources. So these solutions might come from the big companies as we know them, but they also might come out of a few bedrooms as we speak. The business, it's going to be very disruptive for companies. This is a kind of quote that I sort of like because it says, well, we are now witnessing the emergence of a mega market. We get home, building automation, electricity, logistics, automotive, telecommunication. It will all converge. What it means is that we can identify where this is going to happen. So there are a few networks that we that we can identify and work with, like body area networks. Well, the body area network, Siemens was already mentioned a few times, and I will play back this Adam's critique, very, very well-founded critique to them, because I'm working with them in another project. They got an ambient hearing device that is completely online, and that's getting information. So if there's a fire truck in the other side of town making a lot of noise, then my hearing aid already knows it when I'm just on the other side of town. So as I walk into the direction of the fire truck, the hearing aid already starts filtering because it knows the fire truck is coming, although I don't know it myself. Now you can imagine that if you put a little sensor, and which they're doing, a little sensor in the hearing aid to measure a little bit of hardware, my heart and my sweat, and sort of get some information of my body, how I feel, my health, sort of certain indicators, that it can not only sort of get information in, but it can also give information out. Glasses will also be important devices to sort of become this gateway to this body area network. The smart meter is the key to the home. So basically all big companies have bought small smart metering companies, or set up their own smart meters, heavily regulated in Europe. But the smart meter will be sort of the interface, like the iPhone APIs. You will talk to your IP46 enabled lamps and other stuff that's on in your house. When you're in your car, you can put on your energy or your light. There's also a Dutch company offering this, that you can put on your heating when you're in your car with your iPhone. So that's where you want to be. And then you have the car as a kind of hub for mobility, which will be completely a lot of software already there, but also a lot of connectivity. And then this is all being played in this smart city, and then it's the idea of the services. So people are building a flow through these gateways. And the beauty of it now is that, well, because of the internet, I think small groups like ours and activists and open source activists can identify these gateways now as quickly as the big companies. We have the same data, we draw on the same kind of information. And so we can occupy these gateways too. So we have a project, HERMA, which is the beginning of building our own smart meter, our own interface sort of to the home. That's the beginning of trying to not only identify, but then also work on them and make the products, because it's in the products that maybe there's some control left in what we want to do. In design, well, you see a lot of things going on. So the loosely organized set of already bottom-up techno labs, fab labs, open source hardware initiatives. It's there. The RepRap, the sort of 3D printers. Every day as we speak, there's enormous amounts of sort of movement along this front, and also Ilya sort of mentioned this organized network concept is growing. So what we need now is some sense of high modernism, I guess. So we need some sense of identifying sort of what these groups are doing, and then offer them a kind of plausible alternative to all the things that Adam has been sketching and talking about. Then actually this is my quote, which is quite interesting, because I started out 10, 15 years ago thinking about this, getting completely scared and really worried about this space, because indeed, if we do not act now, then it can be a very, very horrible matrix. I think it will still be the matrix. The matrix is the constant. We cannot go back. There'll be more sensors. There'll be more of these kinds of technology. There's no way we could actually stop it. We can only ride the wave. And this is what we have to try to do. So I don't think that in itself, this Internet of Things will bring us to a very, very bad matrix. Although, given our history, given the knowledge that we only talk about 50% of the field, because the other 50% is military and intelligence, and that is already something that's very hard to touch upon. There's more money in Europe in FP7 security projects that are putting smart surveillance systems and biobomb detectors in our cities than there is in sort of actually trying to look at what people are doing in these cities. It's all true. Still, is it possible that we can build Internet of Things on another side of another kind of development, on development that also Adam has been sketching? So the practices of sharing and collaboration at the moment, open source solutions, new alliances are all happening. So, of course, we have to be positive, and as we are, we have to be realistic. It is not something that is simple, but we also cannot underestimate ourselves, because this is a very, very strange moment in history. Never in any kind of decade has it been possible for people who want to share and collaborate to do so in such an extent as we can do now. So there are no givens, I think, in looking back to history and saying, well, looking at the way all very small groups of elites have always formed these and shaped these developments. It may not need to be so. Well, the governance is very important at the moment. There's an enormous amount of talk and discussion going on. The United Nations has set up a group on Internet of Things, a dynamic coalition of Internet of Things. They're trying to secure the kind of field of governance. Europe is trying very hard with a multi-stakeholder approach. China has a kind of Apple model, so they're able to steer on hardware, software, application and services very strong. If they're able to keep this model up, and they're already sort of taking in things like deliberative democracy, which is something that is coming from the States, which they brought to China about 10, 15 years ago, I think 10 years ago already, trying to bring in some grassroots way of discussing things in neighborhood, but still with a top-down view. Some people say that, well, this model is sort of breaking up, and it's about to break up, and maybe in 5 years we should not worry about it like this, but maybe it will not break up. And then we have to look into a kind of situation in which every layer of what we're talking can be heavily controlled. So we may have to look in a different direction, and with Mireille Hildebrand, sort of try to go into this direction of negotiating with machine-to-machine processes, of negotiating with more autonomous processes, and to maybe sort of need to develop a kind of ambient law that's embodied in the algorithms and human-machine interfaces that support this. So we may have to become literate in terms of such a new script. Well, there is a kind of sort of one kind of story. So now I'll just quickly go into what I think is what could happen, but for this we would need a lot of things to happen, but still. What would be this full Internet of Things? Now, a full Internet of Things, to me, is a kind of total and radical transparency. It would mean the lights are full on, but the lights are full on everywhere. It means that I would be naked, but it means that you would be naked too. Everybody must go naked. So it means that I have no more privacy, but you have no more privacy too. So we'll just have to see who's then worse off. So I think in that situation we only need a phone And with that phone, I will just walk around and I will pay 30 cents for my IPv6 enabled lights if I want to walk there for 30 seconds in some light. So all will be transaction there. There'll be no more points of sale or no more points of contact. There'll be no more sort of cards or something like that. There's so much contextual information because there's sensors everywhere, cameras everywhere, that I'm wearing this shirt now, that I don't have to go to a shop and actually then have a card and walk to a counter, put the card in somewhere, put a number in there, and then make the payment or make the thing. There will also be no more corruption, which is nice. No more tax evasion, no more black markets. So I'm sure some people will oppose this. All inefficiencies in political decision-making process will be exposed. All isolation in patents and copyright and IP will be exposed as anti-innovation. There'll be no more privacy as well, only levels of accountability, and there'll be no more security because we're in flow. We're not going to distribute security, we're going to distribute insecurity. So there'll be privacies and securities. So Taiwan will be this kind of team city. Your phone is your ID, is your passport. We'll make it very nice. We'll outbling the iPhone and sort of it will be a perfect thing. It's not inconceivable. Already your passport holds RFID. Why not sort of take it a step further, make it into a tablet and sort of run on it? This is our only modernist moment. And this is the only moment where I get into trouble with a lot of friends because they think this modernist moment is too much. I said, let's do this modernist moment because then we still have some kind of democracy left. Because then you start up your applications and you pay a 22% flat fee or 25% flat fee, that's all. There's no more government, there's no more governance, there's no more legal systems. All we have is you start up your applications, you pay with opening up your applications. We pay for sewage, we pay for roads, mobility, some basic income. Basically, that's all. And all the rest is local decision-making. Now, all else is paid in bartering services. There's no more money. Why would we need money in a full traceability situation where everything can be logged, tracked, and traced and fully traceable? Why would we have to make things scarce in there when everything is in the light? So there'll be new types of currencies, Bitcoin, free coin, energy swaps. I have a little bit more energy in my phone than you, let's swap, and that's also kind of a currency. Now this is a situation I think that is deeply embedded into the Internet of Things. It wants maximum flow and least friction. Now we have to take out the friction. Actually, the friction at the moment is the IP in the companies and the idea of national states giving numbers to people. This really is no longer necessary. I think they tried their best. They did their best with the tools that they had in certain situations, but we do not longer need them for decision-making processes. In fact, they are now running counter to these processes. So we need a new ontology, the best of human creativity, and the best of infrastructure sparse to the only thing we have to worry about, climate change. So all we need is good services catering to climate change, that's all. Now actually, when I sort of gave this talk in Berlin for a lot of people from the European Union community, I thought I would get be in trouble because this is basically to me autonomy in solidarity, which is a basic anarchist Malatesta point of view. And of course, it's not good to mention the word that this sort of when you begin a talk with all is transaction, it sort of gets in the flow. Now, what I found was very interesting is that basically everyone agreed. Everyone in the technological community sort of agreed with this kind of thinking. And it's logical because it's not the technical community with their notion of efficiency that's opposed to my notion of, say, messiness and poetry in this situation. No, it's also in their situation that they have made very efficient systems. But other people, the business people, and the people who wanted to make money of that, have put in blockades. They want to open up the block. They want to get out. They want to take out the blockades as much as we do. So the thing is, I think what we're trying to do is to get the technical and security community a bit more political, because they have set up sort of systems, and they have to take more responsibility for that now. If they don't, we will end up, as Adam said, with 500 smart cities called, and they're going to be military zones, gated communities. Already the highest form of building in the US in the past 10 years has been gated communities, also in Europe. Public money is drained from our societies, and these smart cities will indeed not be populated by us. They'll be populated by very, very few people who will have their kind of seamless, nice sort of efficiency. And we'll be paying for it. We are paying for that at this moment. But it need not be like that. So I think there is a huge convergence of people that see that we can have this kind of flow, we can have this kind of efficiency, and we do not need to hack, or we do not need to break these systems, we just have to take them over. And that, I think, is possible. It's going to be also very difficult, because the entities in this new Internet of Things are no longer going to be us, in a way. They're going to be a bit new entities. So we are very much used to thinking in terms of business and industry as an entity, governance as a set of qualities, and end users. So there's end users, there's business, sort of there's governance. And they all have a set of qualities. Now the entities that are going to be actors in an Internet of Things are entities that take some qualities from governance, some qualities from industry, and some qualities from citizens and end users. And what is happening already there a little bit is that you see that this is going on into ideas about, I got it, generic infrastructure, organized networks, and sort of levels of accountability. So I think, although this is very difficult to understand, and I'm not really sure if I do myself, but I think whoever understands the nature of these entities has a huge advantage sort of in this field. Now, going to what does this mean for education, or sort of what does this mean for learning? There's a huge need for media and sensor wisdom. Media wisdom sort of we understand, but the sensor wisdom, sort of Arduinos, how are we going to actually getting coding into the program very, very early on. Just please get all these iPads out of these classrooms. So it's very, very, very difficult to actually to get them out of classrooms, but there's so much invested at this moment also in Holland. There's some programs, and they're putting so much money in getting these tablets and iPads to the kids. It's horrible. It's actually, I think it's criminal. At the very moment in time where they need to be able to learn coding, which is not so difficult if they start out early, they have to do it. So we have to make pleas for getting coding in as lowest to the lowest possible level of education. It's very difficult to think about interaction in this space because you don't know what you're interacting with. So we go from interaction design to kind of like a resonance design, because resonance is going to be what is happening all the time in this space. The world can be a school because the walls are being taken out, so everybody can be a teacher. And the key is validation, because this is still the bridge that we have to do to these older systems. This is the mix. At this moment, these national states and corporations are really, really, really feeling they're really in trouble. So, also when I'm in some European projects with I'm the stakeholder coordinator for IOTA, which is a reference architecture program with NXP, Siemens, and SAP, and they are realizing that in the Internet of Things they're going to have different business models, and if they are not proactive at the moment. Like the rail station shares that people bought in the 1900s, and like so many industries that went up and went down, they will go down too. Nobody pays anymore for data handling. Nobody pays for data hosting. Nobody pays for some basic data analytics sort of anymore. Even cheap hardware is not in the cost of startup anymore. So where are you going to make your money from? Where are you going to make something a little bit tangible? In this flow, how are you going to define what a product is if the product is going to have relations very, very deep in the supply chain and you don't even know it? So the interesting thing is that our way of thinking of this maximum flow and friction is now running parallel to very real situations on the ground. In Fraunhofer, they have Professor ten Hompel has a lab, and he has 50 bots in a warehouse, and these 50 bots are no longer programmed. So he just programs a space, but all they do is local decision making. Whenever they meet each other, that's when they decide to sort of go there or go there. So he can no longer predict the order of cases in the supply chain, which we thought was sort of the hardest, the most sort of toughest sort of layer that you could never touch. Now he himself is saying that what will happen in the supply chain if there will be pieces of objects with a little bit of agency or a little bit of analytics, a little bit of data, they will enter into relationships with other people, with other objects in that space, and it can no longer be predicted sort of when they will arrive somewhere, which was always the key to supply chain management. So our French theory notions, sort of like, which always said that you can never sort of claim any kind of solidness at what particular level of objects or arguments or things, because there are always going to be some dynamic relations, is now becoming real in the supply chain and supply chain management. This makes me very happy, because what we see is that our way of thinking is actually now running parallel to really good pilots that are sort of that have going on the ground, and that's why, yeah. But that's why I think, like Adam was also ending with this yes and, there is also no real contradiction of my trajectory in the past 10 years, which was from very critical to still very critical, but just taking this criticism up into the level of decision making. So I'm now in this expert group for the European Commission, and I'm chairing the working group societal, and I can bring in these issues in the same way as I'm bringing them in now. And being the stakeholder coordinator to IOTA, which is building a reference architecture model, an architecture reference model for the Internet of Things with these big companies. These sort of what we are saying is actually what they like to hear, because they realize that that there is something very deeply wrong with the way that they're experiencing their notion of technology. But also, their exemption could be a little bit that they were not prepared, that they moved so quickly to the front. They were not prepared. They were also always thinking about themselves as in the back end, doing these back end processes, and all of a sudden, they are sort of in the light, sort of in the front, and they don't know how to handle that. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to stop by saying that it's our job now, I think, to help them to organize into entities that can be players and actors in an Internet of Things world that has a very light, generic infrastructure that's open hardware, open infrastructure, that we can parse to climate change. And so there, I think we can have a big discussion on how autonomous that may be, because this system might really say at one moment in time, sorry, you cannot have 2 showers on a Friday. You cannot. And it's just not going to happen. So we're going to have some debate about how we can have this happen. Or sorry, you just cannot have that car. No, sorry, you cannot have that. It's crazy to have personal mobility in a day and age like this. These are going to be very interesting sort of debates that we will have, because this structure, we're going to have to negotiate sort of with this structure, and the quality of our negotiations will determine the quality of experience. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.